ahead.
TSN's Motoring 95 is brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life. And Midas. For brake, exhaust, suspension, and steering service, trust your car to Midas.
This is the 1995 BMW 740. Nice car to look at, even a nicer car to drive. And the base price is about $80,000. All the things you come to expect from a BMW. But we're going to begin with a story this week about BMW that may surprise you. I mean, did you know that when this company first began, its future was really up in the air?
When people talk about BMW, they immediately think of cars or motorcycles. The fact of the matter is that BMW's roots originated in the aircraft industry, specifically building aircraft engines.
Actually, BMW started during World War II as a developer of aero engines, and the first airplanes which used BMW aero engines were used in the World War I, and also the first height record for flying over a certain number of feet. I think it was actually the first time somebody flew over more than 3,000 meters high was done with the BMW aero engine. And this record, world record, lasted for I think 35 years until it was passed by a different generation of engines. But BMW for more than 30 years were centered around the aero engine business. And only after World War II, BMW had to stop the activities. And then it restarted again in the 50s, but we stopped again in the middle of the 60s when, after having gone through a crisis at the end of the 50s, BMW really decided to concentrate on the core business, the car business.
A classic example of BMW's involvement in the aircraft industry is the Junker 52. During the recent world launch of the all-new 7 Series, BMW gave journalists from around the world the chance to savor a flight in a plane that is part of aviation history.
The plane was built in 1939 from the Junkers in Germany, and it's a 3-engine aircraft with a 550 horsepower each engine. For the first 40 years, it has been used by the military air force in Switzerland. And now we are flying around the 3 aircrafts for different companies or for pleasure flights. We have fuel enough for about 6 hours of flight. The takeoff speed is around 100 kilometers an hour. We are climbing up with around 150 kilometers, and the cruising speed is around 180 kilometers. We are flying around with these airplanes with original BMW engines, and we have now 5,000 hours on this airplane, and they are expected to fly around until the year about 2000 or 2005.
Right now, BMW has combined both activities, the aero engine activities and the car activities, in its 2 major activity fields. The cars, of course, we're talking about right now, we introduced a new 7 Series, but at the same time, BMW is back in the aero engines with Bmw Rolls-Royce, that joint venture where a new generation of air jet engines is developed. This new family of jet engines has firm orders from Gulfstream for the new G5, and out of Canada from Canadair for the Global Express. So just a couple of years after starting that re-entry into the air engine business, BMW has 2 firm orders from Gulfstream and Canadair, and an agreement if the MD-95 from McDonnell Douglas ever comes out of the design boards, this will only be powered by the BMW Rolls-Royce air engines.
Test Drive with Graham Fletcher.
This week on Test Drive we look at Mazda's dynamic new duo, the 323, and a little later on we'll take a look at the Protégé.
Since the introduction of the original Mazda GLC in 1977, no fewer than 165,000 of these things have been sold. Without question, the latest edition is by far and away the best model to date. One of the biggest improvements comes in the form of the brand new 1.5-litre twin cam developed specifically for the base model. While the 92 horsepower and 96 pounds-feet of torque are not exactly big numbers, this engine has the desired effect. A lot of the credit goes to the tuned intake runners. These things ensure high volumetric efficiency, which in turn puts the torque in the usable range, i.e. low down. Matched with this nifty engine is one of the slickest 5-speed manual transmissions available today. The throws are short and precise, and the clutch complements the whole setup very nicely. On the skid pad, the 323 ran through the 100k mark in just under 12 seconds. While not quick, this car sure is a dream to drive. The other major benefit is the miserly fuel consumption. During the test I covered almost 1,500 kilometers averaging 5.7 litres per 100 kilometers, or are you ready for this? 49.5 miles per gallon. To paraphrase my Aussie buddy, this car will run on the smell of an oil rag. For those into performance, there is a larger 1.8 litre engine available. It pumps out 122 horses and 117 pounds-feet of torque, all of which drops the 0 to 100k time down to about 9.5 seconds. The suspension on the 323 is a modified version of the McPherson strut setup found in last year's car. Factor in the stabilizer bars at both ends, and the manner in which the 323 handled the pylon test should come as no surprise. This little car literally romped through the test, belying the fact that the GS model tested gets the softer version of the 2 available suspensions. Out on the road, the ride comfort is composed and supple, offering a surprisingly high degree of comfort for an economy car. Much of the credit for this balanced handling and ride characteristics can be put down to the extra 2 inches in the wheelbase and 1 inch in the track. The resulting larger footprint and lowered center of gravity improve things immensely. The brake system is made up of ventilated rotors up front and drums in back. During the brake test, the 323 came to rest from 80k in 114 feet. Both the pedal feel and the modulation characteristics are to be commended.
My pet peeve on this 323 has to do with the rear view mirror. I cannot adjust it high enough for me to see what's going on behind me. The reason? The hole in the trim panel is not large enough to allow me to lift the lever. Now, while that's a minor item, it's something that needs to be addressed.
Inside, the 323 is very nicely appointed. The dash features a large set of analog dials that are easy to read. The only complaint with the overall ergonomics is the radio placement. It sits way down the center console, falling below the top of the gear lever, putting it effectively out of reach. The front seats are heavily contoured with large base and back bolsters. They also widen at the top to provide the shoulder support lacking in most of the competition. Adding to the overall driving position is a very well placed dead pedal, which when combined with the form-fitting seats ensures the driver stays put while playing. The rear environment is cramped and really only suitable for kids or for additional storage space. The trunk is a good size and is nicely complemented by the standard 60/40 split folding seat backs.
In addition to the problem with the left side mirror, the view through the rear view mirror is rather cluttered. Basically all you see is the back side of the stop lamp, the spoiler and the wiper motor. In short, rearward visibility is not what it should be.
The Protégé is essentially the same as the 323 from the B-pillar forward, the notable exception being the base engine, which is the larger 1.8 litre unit mentioned earlier.
The 2 extra doors do a lot for the rear environment. Access to the rear seat is accomplished with ease, and once back there you'll find a surprising amount of space, head and legroom. Mazda suggests that the available space exceeds that offered by the more expensive Honda Accord. The credit for this goes to something that Mazda call opti-spacing. This is their version of Chrysler's now famous cab-forward philosophy. Well, that's it for this week's test drive. You know, when Mazda introduced the new Protégé and 323, they explained they were going to keep the old model on as the base vehicle for this new lineup. And when you see the price, especially of the dressed Protégé, you begin to understand why. Little wonder then that they're predicting 75% of all sales will come from the old model, which is really too bad because this new vehicle, especially the 323, is well worth a test drive.
If you're in the market for a 1995 BMW 740, you might want to look at the park distance control option. This is how it works. I put the car in reverse, and there are 4 sensors located in the back bumper. And as I move closer to cameraman Dan Bailey, who's seen me drive before and is getting just a little nervous, the alarm should go off as I get closer to Dan. And that alarm will go faster the closer you get to the object. Well, it sounds like a great idea, but could you imagine being in a crowded underground parking lot? This alarm would drive you nuts. But I guess that's why it's an option. All right, now let's head to the garage and join Bill Gardner.
You know, one of the questions I'm most frequently asked is, what kind of things do I need to do to winterize my vehicle? Now, if you're driving a late model car or truck, there's a darn good chance that there isn't a whole lot you really need to do specifically for wintertime. Now, of course, you don't want to overlook the obvious. You have to have the right grade of engine oil. For example, most manufacturers today suggest 5W30 engine oil for easier winter starts. And that's one thing that you'd want to check for. Make sure that that's what's in the crankcase if that's what your manufacturer calls for. Now, you of course want to check the condition and strength of the antifreeze as well. That's very important, and record it somewhere so you'll be able to refer to it all the way through the winter. But there's one other area that I want you to think about where you may want to spend an additional $80 or $100 on your car, not to necessarily get you something this winter, but to give you a car in a few years' time that's still a viable piece of machinery. And that's a little bit of additional rust protection or rust proofing spray. Now, there's various types and processes that can be done, and they're not all have to be done to a brand new car. A seasoned car like this 88 model is still a viable candidate for this kind of protection. You can see that there's a little bit of rust already showing on the fuel tank of this car and in other areas of the underbody of this car. So adding a little bit of rust proofing spray to this car not only protect it and lubricate it for this winter, prevent corrosion from advancing, it's also going to give you something 2 and 3 years down the road when you decide that maybe this is still a viable car for a couple more years, you want to get it repainted. You'll have something to work with. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 95.
A hotel parking lot opposite the General Motors Oshawa assembly plant became heaven for more than 150 Camaro enthusiasts. The meet was an annual event by the Camaro Club of Ontario.
Okay, what we have here is the Ontario Camaro Nationals. We're a division of the International Camaro Club that works out of Scranton, Pennsylvania. We've got about 150 active members here in Ontario, and basically what we do is we have the common denominator of the Camaro, and we swap stories and parts, and we get together once a year for the show. Quite frankly, I'm impartial to the first generation Camaros, the 69 in particular. That's my pride and joy. I have a 69 Z28 RS. I restored the car from not a basket case, but there was a lot of things that I had to do to make sure the car was exact to General Motors' original specifications. And I was fortunate enough to obtain one of the brand new 93 pace cars. Of only 20 of them that were allowed into Canada, I was fortunate enough to get one, and I'm sure it's our club here and the influence we've had with General Motors that certainly contributed to the fact I did get one of the cars, and I'm really proud of the fact that I do have one.
It is 81 Z28. We bought it brand new, took it home, took the engine out of it, And this was when we were young and foolish and didn't know any better, that we should have really kept the original engine. But we wanted to put a blown engine in it, so we put a 671 blown engine in it. We drove it for 2 years and we're afraid that it would twist the car. So we took the 671 out and put a little B&M blower in it, and we've been enjoying it ever since. Right now it's running about 500 horsepower. It's just a family baby.
I've always looked up to someone. You always have your hero, you always look up at someone, and I've always been a Disney fan. I drive the car around with the top down, I pull up, I stop at a light, a van will stop beside me, the driver of the van looks over and you can see the smile come on their face. They'll mention it to the passenger stretches up, and I know they're looking at baby Goofy. They've got a smile on their face, and hey, they've made my day.
Well, I always had a thing for the early Zeds, being that there were homologation specials, you know, for the Trans Am series in those days. Looking through the newspaper in 1978, somebody advertised one for sale. I assumed it probably wasn't an authentic one, and it turned out to be, although in much less than immaculate condition. It was really quite rough, painted white with gold metal flake, and it looked like it had been painted with a broom, and it had blue shag carpet glued all over the inside and so on. But it was an original Zed, so I bought the car, and I've had it ever since. It's kind of become part of my family, I guess.
Basically, it's really the blue-collar man's Corvette. A Corvette has an image that goes with the car, and obviously it reflects a little bit more money involved initially with the buying of the car. Whereas a guy that gets himself into a Camaro, he's usually involved in a different line of work, and he can still enjoy other people that have the Camaros in common with not quite as much money on the line as the guy that would with the Corvette.
We have some brand new Camaros that we're trying to push into the dealer market, and these people they live and breathe Camaros, and it's great for us because it helps us help our dealers get psyched, and we can sell more. It really helps.
And now, what about the monkey thing?
Okay, you want it?
Our Midas tip of the week is for those of you who occasionally forget to turn their headlights off and kill their batteries. Now, of course, a few cars have buzzers attached right from the factory to warn you of this, but an awful lot of cars don't. And if you want to retrofit that to your car, there's a simple little package you can get at most auto electric shops for $8 or $10, and it's a do-it-yourself thing. Simple instructions, 2 connections made to your fuse panel in order to make this buzzer work. And believe me, you won't forget the sound of this thing and leave those headlights on inadvertently. That's your Midas tip of the week.
Off-Road Corner with Cam McRae. Brought to you by Land Rover, makers of Range Rover, Discovery, and Defender.
Every year, the Automobile Journalists Association of Canada convenes here at Shannonville Raceway Park in southern Ontario. The goal is to test all the new vehicles for the AJAC Car of the Year awards. Traditionally, the focus has been on high-speed track testing and evaluating the vehicles out on the road surrounding the property. But what about the 4x4s, the pickup trucks, and sport utilities that are supposed to have off-road talents? For the past 3 years, AJAC has been developing an off-road test track adjacent to the Shannonville property. This year, the testing is under the direction of Andy Philpott, Chief Instructor at the 4x4 Experience Off-Road School.
The course has been developed over 3 years, and it consists of 2 parts, a wood trail which involves very tight driving, and the course that's behind us, which is basically a sand and dirt course. And it's improving every year in terms of being representative of what you can find on trails in Canada. It's designed for not the extreme situation nor the just trail situation, but a bit of everything that will challenge the driver and the vehicle in terms of production vehicles and amateur drivers. I've been off-roading on and off for 30 years, and I guess the big change is in the last 10 years when 10% of the vehicles on the road are 4x4s, and People buy them, I'm not sure for what reason, but certainly it's not for driving off the road, and why this is, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because they're intimidated by the popular image of off-road driving, which is environmentally insensitive, damaging to the vehicle, and sometimes downright dangerous. And as we've seen on this show, this doesn't have to be the case. Off-road driving can be perfectly safe. It need not damage the vehicle when done correctly using proper techniques, and is environmentally sensible when using proper techniques and the correct use of power.
This week, the Land Rover Canada Trail Tip suggests that you get out your owner's manual and learn how to use the transfer case. Get it into low range and practice it before you ever go off-road. For the Off-Road Corner, I'm Cam McCrae.
Do you want to resume, accelerate, or cancel your cruise control? That's coming up next in Kenzie's Corner.
Kenzie's Corner with Jim Kenzie.
A lot of car makers these days are putting the cruise control switches on the steering wheel hub where they're easier to reach. Well, the only cruise control button I want you to reach for is the master switch, which turns it off. I'm not a big fan of snooze and cruise. The only time I found it useful was when I had to drive a motorhome about 8 hours at about 100 kilometers an hour on a really boring freeway. This truck didn't even have a radio in it, and I found that after 8 hours, without having to have my foot constantly on the gas, I arrived quite refreshed. But for the most part, I find people who drive on cruise control have usually put their brains on cruise control as well. There's just too much going on our highways now to make cruise control a really worthwhile option. Even the owner's manual, which next to the Bible is the least read book in the world, warns you against using cruise control if there's other traffic on the road or if the roads are in less than perfect condition. In this country, that's just about everywhere all the time. So if you insist on using cruise control, I've got just one piece of advice. Don't use it when I'm around. By the way, I'm in that 74 Hornet without cruise control. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, that's it for this week. And speaking of BMW and Mercedes and a few other German car manufacturers, you know, there was a day when they said it would be a cold day, you know where, when German cars would be built outside of Deutschland. Well, times have changed. And on a future Motoring 95 program, we will watch Americans building German cars. That's on a future Motoring 95. Make sure you join us as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
Motoring 95 is proud to introduce the first in a series of comprehensive test drive videos with an exclusive comparison of the 7 most popular minivans in North America. Graham Fletcher evaluates performance, versatility, and safety. Bill Gardner examines each van, top to bottom, front to back, and under the hood. Jim Kenzie covers showroom savvy, the demonstrator, buying or leasing, options, and much more. We'll also compare fuel economy, safety features, warranties, replacing parts, and recall history. For your copy of this exclusive comparison video, send check or money order to Motoring 95, P.O. Box 65213, Toronto, Ontario, M4K3Z2, or call 1-800-340-7607. 416 and 905 area codes, call 416-462-1504.
TSN's Motoring 95 has been brought to you by Quaker State. Quaker State, the intelligent oil for longer engine life. And Midas, for brake, exhaust, suspension, and steering service. Trust your car to Midas.